So the N, in essence, stands for novelty seeking. Teenagers are more likely to want novel experiences. And it's shown that dopamine sits, which is this neurotransmitter that is basically a reward chemical. So when you do something pleasurable, dopamine spikes, says that was great, do it again. Every time you do it, spikes, that was great, do it again. Levels of dopamine sit lower in teenagers and spike higher. What this means is that you're much more likely to feel bored at baseline when nothing is happening. Right? And then you're much more likely to feel really excited, euphoric, when you're doing something novel, exciting, sometimes dangerous. You're highly incentivized to do new things as a teenager. Let me tell you a little story. 2 weeks ago, I was out walking at like 11 o'clock or 11:30 at night, which I do sometimes because the streets are nice and quiet at night, up in my neighborhood in Queen Anne, which is kind of a quiet little residential neighborhood, listening to an audiobook, when all of a sudden I hear a really loud behind me, whip off my earphones, turn around, just in time to see a sedan flying by me at about 60 miles an hour. And I can see that there's a teenage boy behind the wheel. And as he goes by, I raise my fist and shake my fist in the air and say, slow down, which is such a silly thing to do because is he going to hear it and be like, oh, that old guy is right, I will slow down, right? And I felt like, oh no, like I've become the old man who shouts at kids in the neighborhood, like this is awful. The truth is, I can never imagine going 60 miles in a neighborhood, miles an hour in a neighborhood. And the reason why is because I would be thinking, as a 38-year-old, I would be thinking, oh, a kid's going to run out, a pet's going to run out, I'm going to kill someone, a car could pull out, I won't be able to stop. I would be thinking all of these things. We call that just thinking, right? And adults do this kind of just thinking. We realize that the consequence is big, so we're not going to do the behavior. Teenagers do something called hyper-rational thinking. Hyper-rational, which means the kid looks at that same road at 11:30 at night, knows what could happen, knows that somebody could walk out, but thinks, oh, all the kids are in bed, the pets are probably inside, there's hardly anybody on this street. What's likely is I'm going to speed down this road and nothing is going to happen. It's hyper-rational, right? It's what's likely that nothing will happen, so I'm going to go for it because it's going to feel great. Adults think about consequences. Kids think about the reward, right? Teenagers think about the reward, not the consequence. Self-regulation is the most important thing that we can start to teach teenagers. Self-regulation is just the ability to kind of pause and think about what's going to happen. When I worked at a foster home for years, we talked about the acronym SODA, which means stop, options, decide, act. If you can start to do some of that as a teenager, you're going to be way ahead of the game to stop and consider the options and then decide and act instead of it just being an automatic process of, I want this, I'm going to go. It's hard to do. But because teenagers have a high level of neuroplasticity, they can actually learn these skills pretty quickly, faster than adults can use them. So it's really important to start working on it now. Novelty seeking is a great thing. It adds zest and excitement to your life. There are studies that show that after 30 years old, adults don't listen to new music anymore. We just listen to the same stuff over and over and over again. There's something that feels safer about what's familiar to us, and we miss out on some of the zest and newness that teenagers experience. So it needs to be cultivated in our kids, but we also have to be able to keep teenagers safe.